How's it hanging, everyone? It is Andrew here from AppleInsider, and this is the new MacBook Pro, the 13-inch model. But specifically, we are looking at the high-end unit, the maxed out version, the cream of the crop, the best 13-inch MacBook Pro you can buy in terms of performance. We already looked at the base level, the entry level, the lower tier MacBook Pro 13-inch 2020, and honestly, we were not impressed, and frankly, did not recommend that anyone pick it up. If you need performance, you should go for this upper tier model with one of the configurations, and if you don't need that kind of performance, then opt for the lower end, the MacBook Air. It's still a very capable machine. If you opt for just a few upgrades on that entry level MacBook Pro, you already get to where the upper tier unit is, and the upper tier has so many benefits. Now, of course, the new MacBook Pro looks very similar. It looks just like the base level 13-inch MacBook Pro, and it looks like the previous generation. There are 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports here on the upper end unit. That's one of the bigger differences. We, of course, have the new Magic Keyboard to go along with it, switching to the new scissor switch design. It's a tried and true key switch there compared to the butterfly switch, which had a little bit some problems with performance, you could say, but it's reliable now. It's a very nice keyboard to type on. We're not going to rehash all of that. Other things to look out here, we of course have Touch ID in that top right hand corner, easy to authenticate. You have the touch bar along the top, whether you use it or don't use it. Personally, I think it's pretty fantastic to have around, though some people don't like using it for previous things the function row keys were used for, such as adjusting the brightness or volume. On the upper left hand corner, you have a physical escape key, which is separate from the touch bar, and in the lower right side you have the inverted T design for the arrow keys. Makes it much easier to differentiate the keys when you're trying to just touch type. As I mentioned, the high-end unit, we picked up the high-end unit of this, the $2,000 one, and then we upgraded the processor, so it's a 2.3 GHz quad-core Intel Core i7 processor with 16 gigs of RAM. Now, the RAM is faster here, LPDDR4 at 3733 compared to the DDR3 on the lower-end entry-level MacBook Pros, and it has a 10th gen Intel chip compared to the only 8th gen on those entry levels. We also have a 1TB SSD. So looking at performance, we are going to be checking out Geekbench, then turning to Cinebench and seeing how this thing holds up. We're going to compare it not only to the entry-level MacBook Pro a little bit, but we're going to be comparing it to the previous gen high-end unit. So we have the most spec'd out powerful processor here, the 10th gen Intel chips. We're going to compare it to the high-end chips from that previous generation. We repeated the test several times, but we are consistently getting numbers around here, which is a 1311 for our single core and a 4862 on that multi-core score, running Geekbench 5.1.1. Now, if we compare this to the previous highest end configuration, which is the 2.8 GHz quad-core i7, but it is an 8th gen chip, where this is the 10th gen chip, so even though it's technically a slower processor, it's actually getting better results both in the single and the multi-core scores. We are seeing roughly 25% gains going from a 1076 to a 1311 and a 4038 to a 4862. On the base unit here, going from that base unit to this one, we're also seeing gains very similar, going from that 948 to that 1311 and a 4015 to a 4862. So pretty big gains against the previous generation high end and our base end unit that we already looked at. Looking at the compute benchmark, which is a graphics benchmark, we're going to switch that over to Metal and run this. This does have improved graphics, the Intel Iris Plus graphics compared to the 645 we saw before. We got an 8408 here on our high-end unit. Comparing that again to that previous generation, we're going from a 7240 to that 8408. So again, performance there. This can run a 6K external display like an Apple Pro Display XDR, which you can't with that base unit. So another improvement for this high-end unit. On Cinebench R20, we're getting a 2071, a good score there, definitely an improvement over that previous generation. We really do like the upper end new 13-inch MacBook Pro. Apple has done a good job, and especially compared to that base unit. Compared to that base unit MacBook Pro, this thing has faster RAM, 10th generation processors that are a lot better performance, even at slower speeds. We're getting 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. You're getting an option to go up to 4 terabytes of storage, whereas the lower end can only do 2 terabytes, and you can upgrade this to 32 gigs of RAM, whereas the base unit can only go up to 16. And of course, the RAM is faster using DDR4 instead of DDR3. So if you're looking between the two, it's a clear choice how much a better machine this is. You can try to upgrade the other machine. You can add a couple things to it, but as soon as you upgrade the storage and the RAM to meet what this guy starts at, it just doesn't make sense because you have so many other improvements there and you're already pretty much hitting it in price. The new MacBook Pro is definitely worth it if you're looking at those higher end options, and if you want to save some money, follow the links down below in the description.
Hey everyone, did you guys like that video? Be sure to click on that like button so we can create content that we know that you guys want to see. And follow Apple Insider on all social media channels. If you want the best prices on any Apple gear, check out the Apple Insider price guide that is updated daily. And until next time, we'll see you later.